Greetings, everyone. Thank you for taking some time to join me in this Conversation Cafe event. I am excited that you all are here. Your presence, the gifts for ministry that you bring, and the wealth of experience that's in this space helps us to be church together. More importantly, the work that you do day in and day out brings hope to your local community, your families, the neighbors, and those that God has given you the privilege to serve. And so I am excited that you're here. I want to say up front that I still believe in the church and its impact on society. The current divisive political discourse and all the things that are happening around us, I still believe in the church. I still believe in the church, even in all the ways it continues to miss the mark. I believe in the local church. And I want to share a quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He asked a deep question in a sermon titled, "Is the Church the Hope of the World?" He stated in the sermon that it's our job to bring the church back to the center of the human race. But we can only bring the church back to the center of the human race when we bring Christ back to the center of the church. He also said in a sermon, A Knock at Midnight, preached on June 11, 1967, the church must be reminded that it is not the master or the servant of the state, but rather the conscience of the state. It must be the guide and the critic of the state and never lose its tools. If the church does not recapture its prophetic zeal, it will become an irrelevant social club without moral or spiritual authority. I believe in the local church. Greetings, everyone. My name is Reverend Derek Perkins Sr. I currently serve as Director for Congregational Vitality and Innovation and merger staff with Disciples Home Missions in the National Convocation of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. I provide leadership and learning experiences for pastors and congregations across the whole church. I develop resources and learning experiences that we can engage, leader development, community partnerships, and also outreach. This vital work is done, my friends, in collaboration with DHM staff, other disciple general ministries and regions, and higher education institutions to enhance engagement with and in support of the local church. In addition to the responsibilities above, Disciples on Mission through my office partners with Lexington Theological Seminary on its Thriving Congregations Initiative. LTS Thriving Congregation Initiative is dedicated to helping congregations gain clarity in their mission, leadership, and effectiveness. Through workshops, trainings, initiatives like this supports congregations in building stronger communities of faith. The partnership with LTS and DHM is expanding the 2019 Thriving Congregations Lilly Endowment Grant research to deepen connections to congregations within the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, share valuable resources with more congregations and church leaders, and strengthen clergy preparation for effective and congregational ministry. So I am excited to be here with you. As a part of my work with Disciples on Mission, and as one of the ways to reach congregations in an affordable way, the Conversation Cafe was created to provide a bi-monthly experience for clergy, lay leaders, and also church staff. I want to just remind everyone, go ahead and please hit mute so that this could be a pleasant experience for all of us. This event is set aside to engage relevant conversations, workshops, presentations, and more to bring together the church in some aspect, the local church, the clergy, lay leaders, and church staff in one place. Not many of our resources offer trainings that will include all in one setting, but I believe that this is the way we can do church best in this society. Perhaps this is a place where you can get some questions answered. This is a place where you can hear possibilities. This is a place where teams could dream together. Let's take a moment to see who's in the virtual cafe today. I would like for you to type in the chat your name, your church, city, and state, and the role you play in your local congregation. Please place that in the chat at this time. And again, while you all are doing that, if you're in a place where you can come on screen, that'd be great. That helps to develop relationships. We get to see you. So the next general event that takes place in the life of the church or a regional event, we can remember each other and say, hey, I connected with you during the Conversation Cafe. That helps with building relationships beyond our short time here today, if you can do that. Welcome, welcome. Sharon, Colleen, Reverend Dan, my colleague in ministry, Erin, Daniel, welcome, welcome. Katarina, hopefully I said that correct, Thurman. Russell, welcome. Zach, Denise, thank you for being here. Nancy, my regional minister, Paul. Phyllis, thank you for being here. Sherry, thank you. And Scott, and Jim, and Sherry. Cullenber. John. I see Roxy. Roxy was in earlier with me. Crystal, Marcy, and Lynn. Thank you so much for being a part of this Conversation Cafe. I'm excited that you decided to take either your breakfast or your lunch or perhaps your late afternoon to spend a little bit of time with me. I also want to know another thing about who's in the room. I'm going to say a few series of statements, and if you could just raise your hand for those who are on screen, use a emoji of some sort to let me know these statements apply to you in your congregation. Welcome, Martha and Lynn. So when I say these statements, either come on screen and wave your hand like this in the air, like you just don't care, or use an emoji to let me know this statement is true for your congregation. Number one, your church has changed since COVID, for good or opportunity. All right. Thumbs up. Wow. For good or opportunity. I mean, challenging and for good. You have created new strategies or programming since COVID. Maybe some thumbs. Here's another one. Maybe you let some of the programming go since COVID. All right. Perhaps you still need to create some new programming. All right. You provide more community resources to your neighbors than ever before. More people are hungry. More people need support. Maybe. All right. Fewer people are coming to church for church activities and Sunday worship. Okay. More people are coming to church for activities and Sunday worship. All right. Some people put thumbs down. More people are coming to your Sunday worship online than ever before. You're reaching more people in different places, in different cities. Your community knows you well and what your congregation cares about. Maybe, somewhat. All right. You have community partners that enhance your congregational efforts. Cool. Your community will miss you greatly if you decide to close your doors. Our church, your church, is excited about mission today. Thanks, Crystal, for your comment. Here's one. Your church is exhausted with everything that's going on around you. Someone put 2 thumbs up. And I want to end with this statement. Your church is clear about what God is calling it to be in this time and in this place. Maybe, yes, no. Well, great. This is the perfect place to be to begin having some conversation. I am not suggesting you will get all of your answers here, but if you will continue to participate in the conversation cafes in the future, we will at least continue working on some of the questions, ideas, and thoughts that you have. I am so excited to have my colleague in ministry, Reverend Dr. Erin Cash, as our presenter today. Can I give y'all three? Only three. I have a whole lot that I could say, but I only want to say three because I might embarrass Erin. I have 3 reasons why I'm excited. Number 1, she's amazing and she's gifted. All right. Number 2, I get a chance to partner and work with Erin regularly on the Thriving Congregations initiative. This is her work. This is her full-time work in ministry. I get to share about 30% of time in that work. And we are currently just launched the 2026 cohort of 21 congregations, while at the same time still working with 15 congregations from our 2025 cohort. So y'all pray for Erin and pray for me and pray for those churches that as we continue to work together, that we don't hurt each other because we're stretched thin trying to do the work of the church. The third thing I want to say why I'm excited, because we have 2 cohorts going right now, we still have limited spots available, right? We cannot do the whole church. And so I'm excited that we're able to share some nuggets here in this space that perhaps, though you are not a part of the cohort, you can get the Thriving Church book. You can have some conversations with me, and I'll only speak for me. I'll come and do some Zoom things with you. If I'm in your area, I'll come to your local congregation, and we can talk about vitality and some of the things that aid it or hurt it. And so I'm excited to have Erin with us today. Many of you all may already have the book, and I hope you do. And if you don't, I'm going to put this shameless plug out there. Go and get it for your local congregation so that you all can have some conversations about what it means to be a thriving community in this season. Erin Cash is the project director for the Thriving Congregations Project at Lexington Theological Seminary. Prior to this role, Erin served as director of admissions at LTS for about 8 years. She's a graduate of Greenville University in Greenville, Illinois, Candler School of Theology at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and Lexington Theological Seminary in Lexington, Kentucky. She was ordained in 2006. Erin enjoys opportunities she has to serve in pulpit supply, to provide guest lectures and workshops, and as a lay leader in her own congregation. Erin has served as moderator for the Christian Church in Kentucky, as co-chair of the local arrangements team for Regional Assembly, and as co-chair for the local arrangements team of the General Assembly. She also serves as Kentucky's representative to the General Board, chairing the General Assembly Planning Committee. Erin is deeply passionate about the work of the local and the regional church. Erin is part of a clergy couple. Her husband, Chris, is the senior pastor at First Christian Church, Georgetown, and have formerly served North Middletown Christian Church and Oxford Christian Church. She is the proud mom to Ella. I'm excited about Erin being here. She is the co author of The Thriving Church, What You Can Learn from Faithful Congregations, now available through Chalice Press. Before Erin begins, I want to kind of set some ground rules. I want us to use the courage and renewal touchstones from the Center for Courage and Renewal to just guide us as we think about the work that we're going to engage. Number one, give and receive welcome. Number two, be present as fully as you can. This means, in this space, manage your background noise. Use mute when you're not speaking and more. Number three, what you offer here is by invitation and not by demand. We're just encouraging you to participate. Number four, speak your own truth, being mindful of others' truth. Please remember, every congregation or congregational experience isn't the same. We have different experiences and we come from different histories and we're facing different challenges. So please be mindful of that as we engage together. No fixing or correcting with the pastor and the lay leaders and staff all in one place. We have a tendency to want to help each other out in ways in which we did not invite one to help us out. So be mindful about fixing and correcting. For those of us who love to help, this can be challenging, right? All of us are in some form of a helping ministry. This can be challenging. So be mindful of that. Turn to wonder instead of just merely reaction and judgment. And then number 7, which I think is very important, know that it's possible for us to meet the divine even in this space. And allow whatever seeds we share together be planted and keep growing beyond this time. We are church together. Again, I believe in the local church. I believe in the regional church. And I believe we should be church together. Let's make this space a pleasant space. Erin, take it away from here.
Thanks, Derek. That was a glowing recommendation. I hope I live up to it. I will tell you all when I get started here, I cannot, I live with ADHD and I cannot keep you all on the sidebar while I give a presentation. So if you have a question or a comment or you want to engage, please just unmute yourself and speak up because I can't see you on the sidebar. And then Derek, if somebody puts a question in the chat, please interrupt me and ask it.
Okay.
I want to tell you all a couple of things that this presentation is not, just so that you're aware. We are going to talk about thriving faith communities in uncertain times today. I do not have all of the answers about how your church can thrive during uncertain times. Now, here's part of why that is the case. Part of the reason is because congregations face uncertain times for a multiplicity of reasons. One of the things we talk about in thriving congregations is that every single thing you do is contextual. And so what's true in Minneapolis is different in Fort Worth, and what's true in Fort Worth is not true in Georgetown, Kentucky, and the same is true for every little place where you live. My husband, there are 4 Disciples of Christ churches in our county. And so for every one of those congregations, their context is different. So if I don't understand the unique context for each of those 4 disciples churches, I definitely don't understand it for all of yours. So we're going to speak somewhat in generalities today, but I'm going to try to drill down and give you some actual practical things that you can use also. That being said, this is also not the time to engage a very specific question about your congregation that may or may not be good for the whole group. Say you've got a pastoral transition that's been exceptionally difficult or something. I am happy to work with you on that, to talk you through it, to help you think through what resources might be helpful. This space may or may not be the place for an extensive conversation about that. So This is neither I'm going to solve all of your answers in 45 easy minutes, nor is it we can workshop your specific issue for 45 minutes. So I just want to name those two things before we get started so nobody's disappointed. And also, I am happy to help you moving forward in whatever way I can. Like Derek said, working with congregations is my full-time job. I get paid to do this and I love it. And so, um, unlike you all, I'm not juggling also trying to pastor a congregation or trying to run a nonprofit or those kind of things. This is what I do. So if I can be helpful to you, reach out to me. I'll give you my email address on the last slide, and we will work through some of those specific things that you have. So this is what it is going to be today. Today we're going to talk about the definition of thriving, what it means to thrive. We're going to talk about what the Bible has to say about uncertain times. We're going to talk about the different kinds of uncertainty that happen in the church. We're going to talk about risk-taking, creativity, and experimentation. I'm going to make a little note about scarcity, and I'm going to provide you with some tools. So it's a lot to accomplish in 45 minutes, so let's get going. So what is thriving? Thriving is not what often gets referred to as the three B's, bodies, budgets, or buildings. Thriving is not about attendance. It's not about your bank account. It's not about where you worship. We often ask the question, can a congregation be both dying and thriving at the same time? And Corey Wilcoxon, my co-author, and I believe completely that yes, a congregation can be both dying and thriving at the same time. All churches, like it or not, all churches have a life cycle, and they go through this cycle of um, excellence, and then they start to decline and they hit a bottom and they begin to rise back up. It happens in every church over and over and over again. Derek, you may not have seen it in the chat, but I commented when you said something about our churches are providing more resources to the community than we ever have before. I commented and said, when your church is 200 years old, like mine is, it's hard to know what's ever been the most. So, because I am certain that I know we have had days of bigger attendance, bigger giving, those kinds of things, but I'm also sure that we have had times in our 200-year history where things were really tight and really scary. I don't know all 200 years of that history, and sometimes those tight and scary times don't get written down, so it's possible those are lost. But they exist. I know they exist because they exist in all churches. But thriving is knowing your purpose, knowing your place, and knowing the times in which you live. So, as Derek said, the question that we push congregations to answer all the time is who is God calling this church to be in this time and in this place? I could do a whole workshop on that question. I have done whole workshops on that question. But I want you to think about it this way. The congregation that you are currently a part of, whether you are a regional minister, whether you are a layperson, whether you are on staff, pastoring, any of those kind of things, the congregation where you serve right now is different than it was 6 months ago. It is different than it will be in 6 months. So this church is the church of the right now. In this time, the June 16th of 2026, and in this place, so your little corner of your neighborhood. I know a few of these churches on here, and I know some of your churches are community churches, right? So you're not a neighborhood church, you're a community church. People drive from 20 or 30 minutes away to get to your congregation. So for some of you, this place is bigger, and for some of you, this place is really small. The congregation where I worship is very much not a neighborhood church where all the people live with basically within walking distance, but it is a county church. I don't think we have any members in our congregation right now who do not live in Scott County, Kentucky. So for us to ask what's happening in Lexington or what's happening in Paris or Frankfurt is a different question because that's not where our people are living. And so it's about this church in this time in this place. I also want to point out to you that uncertainty is biblical. And when I was doing some research on this and doing some exegetical work and thinking through it, For the sake of time, I limited it to a few examples. But if you think through what you know about the Bible, it's full of uncertainty. So I just want to highlight a few verses out of Ecclesiastes. There's a proper time and procedure for every matter, though a person may be weighed down by misery. Since no one knows the future, who can tell someone else what is to come? As no one has power over the wind to contain it, so no one has power over the time of their death. I love that thought, that as no one has power over the wind to contain it. And we know that in both Hebrew and Greek, that word for wind is also the word for spirit. Moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. As fish are caught in a cruel net or birds are taken in a snare, so people are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. We're not going to talk at length about politics today, but I think we can all agree, regardless of where our politics fall, that the times feel like a lot, regardless of what we believe about any political maneuver. The times right now feel like a lot. Whether we call them evil or not call them evil is not the issue. The scripture calls them evil. And out of Esther, common, common, common to be used. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. We often skip that. We make it sound when we talk about this passage like, if you remain silent at this time, the ministry is going to get missed. That's not what it says. It says relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. If we think about this in terms of congregations, if you don't meet the needs of your community, someone else will. And where are those folks? They're going to be with the congregation that is meeting their needs. And then what happens to your church? But who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Over and over again, Jesus says that no one knows the days or the hours in numerous places throughout the Gospels. And in James, pay attention, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town, we will stay there a year, buying and selling and making a profit. You don't really know about tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for only a short while before it vanishes. So it's throughout the scriptures. Uncertainty is biblical, but it's also common in the church. I want you to understand that this is something that churches across time and space have dealt with. It wouldn't be all over the scriptures if the churches hadn't felt it. So think about these two things. This image, I loved it on there because it has this sense of movement and shifting, but you also can't really tell what's the top, what's the bottom, how does it orient? So I just put it in there because for me it helped me think through uncertainty can be beautiful. Churches are always changing. So think about this. Any time you have new members, you have deaths, you have a new pastor, you have new elder leadership, babies are born, you make changes to the building, the changing climate impacts your space. Maybe it's hit by a tornado, maybe it's flooded, any of those things. So many things impact the way a church functions. And the only time a church is static is when it closes. So if you've got folks in your congregation who say, well, we never do that, or we always have this, or that's just not how it's done here, those are just lies. And they're not always intentional lies. They're rooted in fear. We'll talk about that. But they're not true because the church is always changing. And so if your congregation is one that's resisting change, you're just pushing against life. You're definitely pushing against thriving, but you're also pushing against life. And then also, your community is always changing. If your community were not always changing, there would be nothing to print in the newspaper. Politics, industries, job opportunities, who's moving in and out, what schools are opening and closing, what resources are available to the marginalized folks, all of these things make your community an ever-changing place. And so I want to ask this question. I'm going to change my screen a little bit so I can see you some more. Oh, I'm sorry. What uncertainty is your congregation currently experiencing? Feel free to speak up or to put it in the chat. And let's talk for just a minute about this. What kind of uncertainty is your congregation currently facing? I lost y'all.
Numbers and funding for the future.
Okay. Numbers and funding. What other uncertainty?
Pastoral transition.
Ooh, say more of that. What is happening, Dan?
Well, it has been a year since Lori retired.
Mm-hmm.
We finally have a congregational profile approved by the congregation last week, which means I finally have something to apply for. Um, it has been a very long process, much longer than I think I was prepared for. The church has done really good work.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been very weird being an internal candidate and all
Yeah,
the pieces that go with this. Living in Minneapolis with everything that is happening and continues to happen here.
sure. There's in the chat, there's some uncertainty whether the main business in town will close. Aging population. Do you mean within the congregation there, Cheryl? Or do you mean within the community? Yes. Who will take on the work within the church? Yes, these are all very common tension between members. These are things that churches wrestle with a lot. And then the following question is, as a leader in your congregation, how are you shepherding those conversations? What are you doing right now that's helping your congregation or maybe hindering your congregation to think through that kind of uncertainty? Or is that why you're here? Because you have no answers for any of that?
Remember to look for the good even amongst the challenge so that you can
Yep.
see those strides forward even when you feel like you're not making them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Dan says continuing to be a steady pastoral presence. Yeah. Managing the day to day in the midst of it all. Trying to provide a safe place where people can share their feelings. Oh, nice. Becoming a Silver Chalice Church and dementia friendly as a mission to connect with the community. So I want to tell you, this is a little bit off topic, but I want to share with you that a lot of congregations, especially disciples congregations, and I say especially because those are the churches I work with, so I don't know the other contexts. But a lot of churches believe that the way to solve their problems is with young people. And what I want to tell you is that while that can increase your numbers, right? Because if you get one family member, you get all five of them a lot of times. It does, number one, it does not increase your giving. Young people do not give money to the church. They don't have it, so they don't give it. Number two, if your church knows its mission may not be to young people. So things like becoming a silver congregation, a silver chalice congregation, becoming a dementia-friendly congregation, those kinds of things, just as there will always be young people, there will also be always be old people. And so you can minister to senior adults and be the best senior adult congregation you can possibly be, and folks will find you, right? As they age and as they decide that the stage in their life is different and having small children in the worship space is distracting to them because they struggle to hear, they will find you. So just because your folks are 60 or older does not mean that you are going to die out because there are no babies in your church. So I want you to know that children and families are not the end all be all to saving your church. Um, they're wonderful and they bring us a lot of joy and all of those kind of things that go with it, but they are not the key to solving your church's problems. So, like I said, a little bit of an aside, but I did want to say it because that's difficult to for congregations to adopt. So let's go back to our slides here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about risk-taking, creativity, and experimentation. Get you all set up again where I can see you. Okay, so taking risks. When your congregation, so I think these are kind of the three tools that can really help a congregation during uncertainty. Taking some risks, fostering creativity, and experimenting. So when you start talking about risk taking, I believe there are three key groups of people to include in your story. So you definitely want your stakeholders. You got to get them to buy in, whether that's your board chair or your elder chair or the church matriarch. It doesn't matter. Whoever it is who holds that official and unofficial influence in your congregation, you have to get them on board. So start with them. Those are your easy people to get a hold of and to get them on board with you because they're invested in the life of the church. And then you want your adversaries. Took me a long time to come to terms with this, but if you've got folks in your congregation who say no to everything, right? Who don't like you as a leader, who are not interested in making any sort of change, those are the people you want to also get on board with this. And I will not tell you who, but one of the congregations Derek and I work with put one of those adversaries on their Thriving Congregations team on purpose because they said, if we can get that person excited about what we're doing, they will lead all of those other adversaries with us. And then you want to include some challengers. You do not want, and when I say challengers, I'm not talking about adversaries. I am talking about people who will push you, people who will challenge the church to do more, to give a little more, to lean further into whatever risk you're going to take. So you're talking here about maybe these are folks who are big dreamers. Maybe these are people who are saying, oh, yeah, we could do that. But what if we could also? Or they're your folks who are saying, yes, let's do that. But don't forget, we have to turn the water off next week because we have to have a plumbing fixed, right? So like you need those people who are executive thinkers who can challenge the status quo in a good and meaningful way. Adversaries are challenging it for the sake of challenging it. Your challengers are the people who are pushing back up against it so that it is better. So think about those three things. That's where you want to start. Here's how you do it. Start small and grab the easy wins. So for your congregation, if taking a risk is changing the layout of the bulletin or the order of the service, start there. Grab the easy win. And the third piece of that is communicate, communicate, communicate. If your church uses a Facebook group or relies on parking lot conversations or has a phone tree or only talks to each other in the Sunday morning worship service, tell them what you told them and tell them again. But it's not just information dump. It's communication. It's back and forth, right? So you change the worship bulletin and somebody is going to tell you they don't like it because they can't find the hymn number now because it's not where it's supposed to be. But someone else is going to say, wow, I love the new layout. It's so interesting how much space I have for writing notes on here. In both cases, ask them why. Right? Why was that difficult for you? Is it because the font was wrong? Is it because the margins were too big? Communication goes both ways. So make sure you're getting that feedback also. It A, helps people to feel like they've been heard and not just dismissed. And B, you actually do figure some things out. right? Because someone will say to you, it's great, but I kept dropping it because it's smaller and I couldn't keep a hold of it. Oh, well, we can fix that. We can make it bigger, right? So start small, grab the easy wins. When you start taking risks and you start telling your congregations, we're taking risks. We're going to do some new things around here. And then you can say, look how well it went when we changed the bulletin. Look how much more space there is for doodling or whatever the case may be. Or look how much paper we saved because we jammed it all into one page instead of two. All those things, celebrate that, communicate it, and that fosters a culture of taking risks in your community. You do not have to start with, we need to be an open and affirming congregation, and we have never had a conversation about this before. You do not have to take major, major risks in uncertain times. Sometimes something happens, like Minnesota, where you're forced to take a major risk because you have to either do something or do nothing, but not very often. Most of the life of a congregation is lived in mildly uncertain times for your day-to-day living, right? We don't never know if we're going to be at war tomorrow or not at war tomorrow, or the economy is going to be up or down, or gas prices are up or down, or any of those things. We never know any of that stuff. But for most of our folks, Sunday morning to Monday morning is not a dramatic shift, right? So we're shifting slowly as a culture, even in the places where it feels like it's shifting really fast and really dangerously. So grab those wins where you can, and that will help your congregation when the time comes where you have to make a major shift or you're ready to make a major shift. Creativity. Discover in your congregation your creatives. When I say that to people, they automatically go to the artists and the musicians and the dreamers and the children. And those are true. Those are creatives. But guess who else is creatives? Your attorneys and your bankers and your political activists, because they're strategic thinkers. So creative folks do not always have to be artists. Sometimes your creative folks are people who can think through the way a congregation functions, who can think through interpersonal dynamics. Sometimes your strategic thinkers can say, you know, when it would be great to do this program. So think through who those creatives are. And then also make sure you add your joy bringers. If you're going to do something creative and something new, you need the folks who are going to just be thrilled to death to try it. If you're doing creative work and nobody has joy about it, I don't know what you're doing. It may be wonderfully creative, but it's gonna be boring. So bring your joy bringers to these conversations. And then do include your artists of all sorts of media. That includes your words. Because to go back to taking risks, communicate, communicate, communicate. So if you've got an artist of words in your congregation, use them. Let them tell the story of what you're doing. And sometimes those are poets or something. Sometimes they're just people who can turn a phrase really well. Sometimes you've got an elder who people will say, oh gosh, I love it when Roxy is at the table because she always has a way of bringing communion to life, right? Like it's a thing that some people have. Clearly, I don't at the moment because all I can come up with is a thing. But there's a spirit of being able to turn language that some folks have. So make sure you think about who those people are also when you're thinking about your artists. Here are some questions that are rooted in creativity. Is there a better way? So what we're doing is working, but is there a better way? Could what we're doing be better? What can we celebrate? And who in our congregation or outside of our congregation has something to share? Because sometimes we find out, oh gosh, we, for example, have a high school student who is just an absolute phenom on the piano. When we started asking her if she would play in worship, it changed the way the congregation thinks about worship, because here's this little protege that they've raised from infancy, right? Who's now sharing in worship as a 14-year-old and just boggling the minds of even some of our musicians with how good she is. Who has something to share? And she's one example, right? But there might also be somebody who's a really darn good plumber, right? Who can help us think through the most cost-effective way to make our bathrooms more accessible, right? So it's not always the artists. We like to think artists when we think creativity, but there are creative folks all over the spectrum of skills. Is there a better way? What can we already celebrate? And who has something to share? And then the final piece is experimentation. If you're ready to take a risk and you've thought through some of the creativity, it's time to implement some of that. So here's how I personally argue for experimentation. Start with language. So first we're going to talk about it. We are going to use the word experiment to death in the congregation. We are going to tell them we're dreaming about ways we could experiment. Then you're going to tell them we're getting ready to experiment. Then you're going to tell them we're going to listen to your ideas on experimentation. And then we're going to say in a month, we're going to start a new experiment, in 3 weeks, so on and so forth. So load them up on language that this is an experiment, because experiments are temporary. We are not going into this saying we are going to change worship. We are going to experiment with worship, and we are going to try something new. And then you start inside the walls. Derek's question about if your who in your community knows you and knows what you stand for is so, so vital. And there's a whole chapter on it in the Thriving Church book. But if your folks inside the walls are not on board and they don't know the answer, nobody outside is ever going to know. So I argue for starting inside the walls. Even if you want to do, say, some sort of feeding ministry. We're going to experiment, we're going to experiment, we're going to experiment, we're getting ready to experiment. Here comes the experiment. Who inside our congregation needs help in a feeding ministry? And how could we start that very small? Maybe there's 4 folks who are kind of food insecure. Let's start there and let's get a group of people together who would be willing to prepare double their dinner and share that with these 4 folks who are food insecure. It helps you to build practices, figure out what works, what doesn't work. The churches love to do like after school programs for kids, things like that. What if you started just with your own kids and said, hey, we're a block down from the elementary school. If your kids go to school there, we'll pick them up and bring them into the building. Because the folks inside your walls are a little bit more gracious, a little bit more willing to recognize this is an experiment. Once you get a rhythm inside the walls, then move outside the walls. So even when you think about big things like LGBTQ inclusion, what does it look like if you start inside the walls? If you've got 1 or 2 gay folks or 1 or 2, pick any category, right? What happens if you start including them more in worship first and then making them deacons and then making them chairs of your board or something like that? And then your congregation has thought through the components of what that means, and they are prepared when somebody comes in from the outside to think that through. Because folks from the outside, especially unchurched folks, you don't often get a second chance. So if you start outside the walls and you experiment and it goes terribly, you may not get that opportunity again. Here are my tips for experimentation. When you're using language, name the anxiety. Just name it. This is gonna be hard for us. This is gonna make us feel uncomfortable. We are gonna struggle. We are gonna hit bumps. We don't know exactly if this is gonna work or not, but that's okay because it's an experiment. And then I would advocate for whatever it is you're doing, be consistent with it for at least 3 times. Because the first time it's new, the second time we're kind of annoyed by it. The third time we might get the hang of it. And then even though I've said start small, also go big. So go all in on whatever it is you're going to do. If you're going to change the bulletin, don't just change the font, flip the whole concept of the bulletin, right? Because if you make these teensy tiny little steps, it's going to be 10 years before you get the bulletin to look the way you want it to look. So name it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be different. We're not going to like it at first. Do it a bunch of times before. We're not going to do it one time and see if it works. We're going to do it multiple times and see if it works, and then make a big change. So what are the tools for these uncertain times that we live in? I maintain that when the times are uncertain, the gifts and the growing edges of the church are even more important. So when we think about what are the gifts of the congregation, these are just three that I would recommend to you. If you are looking for hard tools, on the ground tools, these are three I would suggest. And when you get these slides, these are clickable links. So you don't have to search for them. You'll just be able to click them and move on. Or I mean, it'll take you directly where you're going. So asset mapping. Asset mapping is a community project for building recognition of the gifts that you already have. So we do not think about our assets that we have in the building. We have our physical space. We might have a bus or a van. We might have some dollars. We think about those things as our assets. What we don't think about are things like, hey, we have a graphic designer inside our church. Hey, we have 14 kids who are super creative and want to be helpful around the church. Hey, we have a phenomenal cook. We have a city council member. We have an attorney. Those kinds of things that help us think through how is our church uniquely gifted to be in relationship in positive ways with the outside world. And then World Cafe is also a community project where you sit at small tables and you think through questions. But World Cafe helps us to think through what's our purpose here? What are we doing? But in a way of what's already important to the congregation. And then there's a tool called Brave Conversations. It's about understanding your community. And so that's available to you as well. Brave Conversations, you work with a consulting group. So that one comes with a little bit more of a cost. But I believe you can do it independently if you purchase the resources without having to engage the consultant. And then growth. So community discovery is a tool that you can use to understand your neighborhood. And when I say neighborhood, it's the neighborhood of the people who live and move inside your congregation. But that helps you to start saying, where are the gaps in ministry in my community? Because sometimes that gap is right smack dab in the middle of your giftedness, right? If your congregation is made up of all 80-year-olds, maybe kids ministry is not the place for you. Or if your community has 15 really robust children's ministries, maybe children's ministry is not the place for you, even if you're a congregation that's made up of all people who have retired early and love working with kids. Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. Maybe your community rather has a hole in ministry of, people who need this one thing. One of the churches I work with had a bunch of people who are certified in a lot of professional areas, like professional development kind of areas. And they started a resume writing and interview training ministry for folks who didn't have those skills because they have all these professional people who know how to do that, who facilitate interviews. It's some HR people, right? So they're like, let's just do this. Let's have a ministry that is is in our wheelhouse, so to speak, and is a gap in our community. If you're looking for details on the 10 traits of a thriving church, You can absolutely order the book. It is linked right there. Shameless self-plug for the book I wrote. And then the other piece that is such growth for congregations and is so critical is rest. If you're not resting as a leader, if you're not encouraging other people to take a rest, you can't navigate when the when the ocean is doing this all the time. If nobody is resting, you're going to run out of steam to paddle through it. And so you have to, I encourage people to think like migrating birds, right? Somebody takes the lead for a while in the V and then drifts back and takes a rest, and somebody else steps up to take the lead on that. And that's what allows them to keep flying. I just want to say a quick couple of things about scarcity. Scarcity is a real thing. The median disciples congregation right now is about 38 to 39 people in worship on Sunday morning. I want you to hear that in two ways. Number one, if your congregation is 45 to 50, you're not a small disciples church. You are an average disciples church. And also, if you're falling below that, it's a real thing to name. We don't have a critical mass of people to be offering a multiplicity of ministries in our community. That's okay. The purpose of thriving is not to do more things. It's to do what you already do better. So I don't advocate for you need to add this ministry and add this program and do this one more thing and create a new step and a new process. In fact, I usually advocate for narrowing that down. If you're a congregation of 15 people and your bylaws say you have to have 12 people on the board, you have too much. You have too much on your plate. So I encourage you to streamline. Wilson Dickinson, who is one of our theologians at the seminary, says often, do less, better together. And so I encourage congregations to think about that. You do not have to meet every need in your community. That old phrase, the ship is so wide and my boat is so small. Just be the boat for those few people, whether that's the folks inside your congregation and their immediate families or the people who live across the street from your church, whatever it is, do less, better together. Also, scarcity is different from a scarcity mentality. So the scarcity mentality says, we can't do this. There's not enough. There's not enough people, there's not enough dollars, there's not enough time, there's not enough whatever. Scarcity mentality is dangerous because it keeps us rooted in fear and it keeps us stagnant. Scarcity mentality is problematic. Scarcity is okay. If you genuinely don't have the people, you don't have the dollars, you don't have the time, do what you already do better. But if the scarcity mentality is 5 years from now, we're not going to be able to do anything, that's not helpful. One of the congregations that I work with told me at the beginning of the project, we have enough money to last 5 years. 3 years into the project, they had enough money to last 5 years. So scarcity mentality was keeping them stagnant because they didn't think that they could do as much as they could. And that's all I will say about that. Albert Einstein said once, strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. And so I ask you the question, how is your church striving to be of value to your community in the uncertain times? Because the reality is, churches are not the only place that are feeling that uncertainty, right? It's the topic of conversation in businesses, in schools, in homes. So how do we be of value to our community? The world is shifting, the church is shifting, and the churches who adapt and innovate are going to be the churches who thrive. But embracing that change begins with you as the leaders of your congregation, whether that's pastoral or lay leader or key stakeholder, any number of things. If you begin to embrace change and begin to nudge your congregation that way, and to say the world is changing, the church is changing, and if we adapt, we'll be okay, then you begin to foster that mentality in other people in your congregation. This is my PS because it literally just hit the shelves today. If you are actually interested in all age ministry, this is not my resource. It's a resource from Challenge Press. But if your congregation is thinking about either, we don't have enough kids and volunteers to manage specific children's ministry or youth ministry or something, and you're thinking about how to incorporate your kids into your worship space or into the life of your congregation. Or if you're a congregation with a wide group of ages and you want to try to bring the gifts and the resources of a truly intergenerational group together, I am very excited about reading this book. I have not read it. I cannot tell you that I'm highly recommending it because I haven't read it, but I can tell you that it just came out and I'm very excited about it. So it's called Church Together, An Essential Guide to All Age Ministry. All right, what questions can I answer for you? I'm going to stop the share so I can look at you all. We have about 10 to 12 more minutes. What can I answer for you? What do you want to talk about?
So if a church was thinking of doing a book study on your book, would you think to start that like as a board study or as an elder study?
That's a good question. I have known of churches who have done it both ways. It really, I think, kind of depends on who the stakeholders are in your congregation. I know churches where the board is largely perfunctory, and the elders are really running the show. I also know congregations where the elders have less sway. I know churches where elders make up half of the board. So I think it's contextual, but I think it's appropriate for either. I also know churches who have done it as a Sunday school unit for adult Sunday school classes. Though it's really designed, it's written on about a fourth grade reading level on purpose, so that it's accessible to clergy and lay folks. The chapters are short. The longest chapter is 4,000 words. It comes with discussion questions and recommended scriptures at the end of each chapter. So you can use it in just about any place. Yes, Derek.
I was just going to say, I also know congregations that used it as an adult Bible study and a church-wide book study. And so that they could introduce some ideas and thoughts around what might be next for them. The whole church read it and then broke into their small groups to have some deeper conversation.
Thank you.
This is Sharon Richardson. I have a question.
Sure.
So our church is wanting to make some big moves to, and when we first started out, you said it's not about bodies, money, or building. And I do think that one of the things that makes us aware we need to change is the number of seats and pews.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not correct to have the goal, we want more people, but that is what's making us aware that we're
Exactly.
in a negative position.
Exactly.
And so to come up with, um, what does our community want, both inside the church and outside the church? Do you have suggestions on ways to drive out what you talked about, do what you're doing now better or do something different? How do you drive that out?
Do you mean when you say drive it out, do you mean kind of drill down and get some answers on that? Or do you
Yes.
mean, okay, because
Yes.
there's
That's
also
just,
the like, we want to get rid of this negative thought in our congregation, right?
no.
Okay. So I personally am a big fan of listening sessions inside the congregation, building out sessions, and in some contexts, the place that works best is with the elders. So having the elders to say, for example, each of the 6 elders in our congregation is going to host a listening session. I'm just going to contextualize based on, I'm going to make up a scenario, right? So each of the 6 elders is going to hold a listening session at their own house. There's room for 10 people in each listening session. Please only go to one so that there's room for everybody. And they're going to have different times available, right? Somebody's going to do a Saturday afternoon, somebody's going to do a Sunday lunch, somebody's going to do a weeknight, et cetera, et cetera. And then let the elders together come up with some questions that are not yes, no questions, and also that are not fostering negativity. So when my congregation did this, we used questions like, describe a time where you felt most warmly welcomed in this congregation. Or in 2 years, who do you imagine sitting in the pews in this church? Or what do you think we are uniquely gifted to do? Those types of questions that are broad and open-ended, but help the congregation to see themselves as a vital ministry still. Because one of the things that I feel like sometimes I don't say clearly when I talk about numbers is that it's not that the numbers don't matter. Numbers tell stories, they do, including what you're saying, Sharon, about sometimes the numbers help us to realize that we have to make changes. But the numbers are not the measure of thriving. So you can be thriving with 12 or 14 people in your pews, or you can be a dying church with 250 people in your pews. And so just because there's 100 people there, if you don't know who God's calling you to be right now, you're not thriving. If you're just spinning your wheels in the middle of the street, and waiting to see what comes to you next, that's not thriving. That's just maintaining. So that listening sessions are something that I really, really like for helping the congregation figure out what their real passions are and what their real giftedness is. And then from there, you can start to say, okay, this is a church that really, really cares about the food system, right? How we grow it, how we advocate for it, how we distribute it to people in need. So, what are the feeding ministries in our community? And then you do listening sessions again, but you do them backwards and you invite, say, the leader of your local food pantry to come in and talk to an adult Sunday school class or a small group session and to say, this is what we do and this is how we need help. And then your church begins to know the need that they're already passionate about in hard numbers, and begins to understand where God may be leading them. Is that helpful?
It is. I appreciate your response. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Erin, I think we have Joyce raised her hand. Joyce
Yes.
Lambert.
What you got, Joyce?
Yes, good afternoon. Our elders are currently using the Thriving Church book. The intent is we're doing a study of trying to be more intentional about church vitality and thrive. So we started with the elders. We actually have a meeting on Thursday with the deacons. And the idea is that, as you said about the listening sessions, each of the elders and deacons who have a group of members that they're responsible for on our care listing, that they would then talk to the the people on their care team.
Yes.
So we have some people that say that's good. Others say, why don't we just tell the whole congregation at one time?
Right.
So now the discussion on Thursday is how we go forward. And I do want to reach out afterwards to you or Reverend Derek, as far as what you would guide outside of this conversation, because we have some other as well. But we've been enjoying even the introduction to Thriving Church. And then I'm a part of the Pennsylvania region where you came to talk during our clergy call last year, and Reverend Allen invited you to come. So that was for me. I've been trying to do this since then, and finally they said, okay. So
Great. So yes, definitely send me an email, Joyce. If you want to have further conversations about that, I'd be happy to help you out.
yeah. So that's the thing about, we don't have a large congregation, but and then we have the cross where there's families on our list, say the daughter and son or the husband may be on one list and the wife's on another. So we were trying to say, okay, we have it with them, then they're going to talk, and we want to make sure everybody's getting as close to possible to the same information. But thank you. Thank you for this. This has been great.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So, Erin, we have 5 minutes.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you to you for carving out some time in your busy schedule to join the cafe. I want to thank all of you. I want to do 2 things. I'm going to drop in the chat a evaluation form. And in that form, I want to understand your experience here. I also want to hear about what future topics you would like to discuss. This bi-monthly experience will continue as long as it's relevant for pastors, lay leaders, and your local congregation. So I'm going to drop that in the chat now. And so please complete that. That will assist me in my work and making sure that this is relevant for you. I also want to drop in the chat a link to my page, because there are 3 resources that I think could be very helpful right now as it relates to guiding statements, which has a Bible study attached to it as well. There is one on community partnerships that could be very helpful once you kind of get a sense of where you're headed. And then there is a downloadable resources on congregational research strategies to kind of get to know your neighbors, what's happening in community. And it's something that you all could do in small groups, have some fun around. Erin mentioned listening sessions. I think that is the way to go when you are trying to do work as a community. As a body, you want to hear from people. But when you start looking outside of your church, those listening sessions will be important for you to show up where people are serving and to hear from your neighbors as well, as you begin thinking about what does it mean for you to thrive in your local community. And so I hope that what you've heard here today is inspiring you, empowering you and your team to begin thinking about what is God calling you to be today and in the place where you are called to serve. I appreciate you being on here. You will receive an email to this video. You will also receive the PowerPoint slide. Thank you, Erin, for making that available. The links in there will be active, so you should be able to get directly to the resources that were shared with you. The last thing I want to share is that if you are interested in helping my office continue to provide resources like this virtually or in person, you guys are aware of what it means for us in general ministry to travel across the United States and Canada to have these kind of workshops. If you're interested in supporting my office, those donations, and those of you who have already given, thank you. Those donations will offset the travel budget. But again, this platform is created so that I don't have to travel out to have an hour-and-a-half conversation or a 2-hour conversation with you. It's free to you and it's free to us. It's just time and preparation to be able to gather this material. So we want, again, to make sure that our local church and the regions that we're part of have access to the scholars that are available to us and the resources to help you thrive in this place and during this time. So thank you so much. Again, please complete the evaluation and visit my page on DHM's website. And within a day or so, I'll be back in touch with you via email to share this recording and also Erin's PowerPoint. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all across the life of the church. And don't hesitate to reach out to me as well. My job is congregations as well for DHM. And so let's be in touch to figure out what ways we could support you in your work. Thanks again. Thank you, Erin. Can y'all help me show some love to Erin just by waving those fingers to Erin and hands for the time that she shared with all of us today. Blessings to you all. Have a great rest of the day and a great week.